One of the fastest ways to move up the UFC ladder and build anticipation for an upcoming bout is to try and call out an opponent. Of course, there's also the old saying, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. To show just how accurate this popular expression can be, we've decided to take a look at 10 high-profile UFC callouts that went horribly wrong. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 UFC fighter callouts that backfired. Number 10. Glover Teixeira vs Anthony Johnson. In April of 2017, longtime light heavyweight contender and former title challenger Glover Teixeira was in the midst of a 3-fight winning streak, with 2 of those wins coming by way of knockout. Following a string of victories, Glover was eager to re-enter the title conversation after a disappointing loss to Jon Jones in 2014. Following the Evans win, Teixeira called out Anthony Rumble Johnson, a powerful knockout artist who also was on the verge of title contention.
Rumble Johnson, you know, he's waiting around for Jones and Cormier soap opera, so I mean he don't want to wait around. Let's dance, baby. Let's make some money. Listen, with a lot of respect for Rumble Johnson, he's a great guy. But like I say, we're here to do business. Let's do business, you know?
The two would compete in a #1 contenders fight while the Jones and Cormier rivalry sorted itself out. As it turned out, Rumble wasn't eager to play the role of gatekeeper. In the end, it took Johnson just 13 seconds to put his opponent away with a devastating knockout, making Teixeira's callout seem very ill-advised. Number 9. Chael Sonnen vs Anderson Silva 2. When it comes to trash talking or calling out opponents, few have been able to do it with as much flair as the bad guy Chael Sonnen. The former Division 1 wrestler knew how to promote a fight and showed it when he challenged his nemesis Anderson the Spider Silva for their second go-around. Sonnen and Silva met for the first time at UFC 117. That evening, Sonnen appeared to be on the verge of securing the UFC middleweight title. But just when victory seemed to be in Sonnen's grasp, seemingly out of nowhere, the Spider managed to lock in a submission in the closing minutes of the contest to retain his title. Following the UFC 117 bout, Sonnen tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs and as such served a lengthy suspension. Upon his return, Sonnen rattled off consecutive victories over Brian Stann and Michael Bisping. Following the hard-fought win over Bisping, the bad guy wasted little time in calling out Silva.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. I'm calling you out, Silva, but we're up in the stakes. I beat you. You leave the division. You beat me. I will leave the UFC forever.
Ultimately, Sonnen would be granted his wish, and the rematch took place at UFC 148 in 2012. The second bout was nowhere near as memorable as the first, with the talented grappler controlling Silva in the first round, but ultimately was on the receiving end of a devastating knee to the body that resulted in a TKO victory for Silva. Number 8. Nick Diaz vs George St-Pierre. In truth, both Nick and Nate Diaz have been calling out George Rush St-Pierre for some time. That said, the most famous callout of GSP came at UFC 137. After defeating BJ Penn in his UFC return, Nick Diaz turned his focus towards St-Pierre, claiming that the welterweight champ was scared to fight.
I don't think George is hurt. I think he's scared. I think he's scared to fight everybody right now. What's up? Where you at, George?
Despite years of anticipation, when Nick Diaz and George St-Pierre finally clashed in 2013, the fight ended up being fairly one-sided, with GSP ultimately using his wrestling to control the Stockton native and coasting his way to a decision victory. Of course, Diaz had some interesting accusations regarding the loss. He even went so far as to claim that he was poisoned before the bout, though supporting evidence is scarce. Number 7. Paulo Costa vs Israel Adesanya. Brazil's Paulo the Eraser Costa is known for being one of the most physically imposing figures in the UFC. Following a decision victory over Yoel Romero at UFC 241, the 13-0 prospect appeared destined to one day fight for the UFC middleweight title. That said, before he met the reigning champ Israel Adesanya in the cage, he decided to call him out on social media, referring to Adesanya as both afraid and fragile among other things. Adesanya later responding by calling the Brazilian a Ricky Martin wannabe. Unfortunately for Costa, his call out of Adesanya would ultimately lead to the end of his undefeated streak, when at UFC 253, the last stylebender used his slick striking to make his talented rival look like nothing more than an amateur, dismantling Costa on his way to earning a TKO victory in the second round. Number 6. Brendan Schaub vs Antonio Nogueira. Former UFC heavyweight turned podcast host Brendan Schaub never shied away from a challenge during his tenure with the promotion. After knocking out the legendary Mirko Cro Cop at UFC 128, the fighter and the kid host had his sights set on another iconic heavyweight in Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira.
If they need someone crazy enough to fight Big Nog in Brazil, I'll be their Huckleberry, whatever they want.
Really?
Whatever they want.
Is that a fight that you actively want? Because you sort of have a habit of calling out fights that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I want the big fights, the big names, and we could continue this legend stuff if you want.
After calling out the Brazilian, Schaub's request was granted, and the two went head-to-head at UFC 134 in 2011. This time around, Brendan was on the receiving end of a highlight reel knockout. The loss would mark the beginning of a 2-4 stretch for Brendan, setting the stage for his retirement in 2015. Number 5. Derrick Lewis vs Matt Mitrione. The Black Beast Derrick Lewis is a powerful puncher who currently holds the record for the most UFC heavyweight knockouts. However, back in September of 2014, Lewis would wind up on the other side of the KO equation. After making short work of Guto Incente in 2014, the Black Beast decided to pick a fight with MMA vet Matt Mitrione.
I really want to run through this whole heavyweight division. I want to match Mitrione next. That's who I want next, Mitrione.
As it turned out, Mitrione packed a bit more of a punch than Lewis had expected. In the end, the current Bellator standout was able to KO Derrick Lewis in just 41 seconds. The setback remains the quickest loss in Derrick Lewis's career. Number 4. Alistair Overeem vs Francis Ngannou. Former UFC title challenger Alistair the Demolition Man Overeem has been a professional mixed martial artist since 1999. Of course, even the savviest veterans are known to make a mistake every once in a while. One of Overeem's most notable mistakes was calling out Francis the Predator Ngannou. While the Reem's bravery was commendable, Ngannou wasted little time in making the Dutchman regret the call-out. The two heavyweights squared off at UFC 218 in December of 2017. That evening, Overeem was the victim of one of the most brutal knockouts ever seen inside a UFC octagon. Fortunately, despite being hit with the sort of shot that can change the course of one's career, Alistair Overeem made a full recovery and continues to compete at the highest level. Number 3. Nate Diaz vs Jorge Masvidal. After his epic feud with Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz became one of MMA's biggest stars. Following his UFC 241 victory over Anthony Showtime Pettis, the Stockton native wasted little time in calling out another one of the sport's hottest stars in Jorge Gamebred Masvidal.
Jorge Masvidal had a good last fight. There ain't no gangsters in this game anymore. There ain't nobody who done it right but me and him. So I know my man's a gangster, but he ain't no West Coast gangster. You know what I'm saying?
The matchup created plenty of buzz and even spawned the honorary BMF title. So, at UFC 244, the two BMFs went at it in one of the most highly anticipated fights of the year. While Masvidal may not have been a West Coast gangster, he was most definitely the superior striker that evening. Once fight night rolled around, Gamebred picked apart the former Ultimate Fighter winner for the better part of 15 minutes, before the doctor ultimately stopped the contest due to a nasty cut above Nate's eye. While Diaz engineered the matchup and consequently the title, it was Masvidal who left the arena with BMF gold around his waist. Number 2. Daniel Cormier vs John Jones. In truth, it feels like Daniel Cormier and John Jones have been trading insults and calling out one another for eternity. The two rivals haven't gotten along since they first met in 2010, and seem destined to eventually cross paths in a combat sports environment. After defeating Dan Henderson at UFC 173 and accumulating a flawless 15-0 record, the undefeated Daniel Cormier made a point to call out the light heavyweight champ John Jones in a heated post-fight interview.
John Jones, you can't run away from me forever. I'm the kid at the wrestling tournament that is always in your bracket. No matter where you go, boy, I'm coming.
Cormier eventually got his wish, and the two were scheduled to face off for the first time at UFC 182. Sadly, the fight wasn't as competitive as most had anticipated, with the champ earning a fairly one-sided unanimous decision victory. While Cormier understandably wanted a shot at the title, his first tussle with Jones would mark the end of his unbeaten streak. Number 1. Eddie Alvarez vs Conor McGregor. For the past 5 years, calling out Conor McGregor has become all the rage for seemingly every fighter on the UFC roster. Of course, given the kind of money that one can make from a potential bout with the Irishman, it's easy to understand why his name's on everyone's tongue. One such fighter who succeeded in getting the Notorious One's attention was Eddie Alvarez.
I would ask Dana White, please, to give me an easier fight like Conor McGregor. I deserve that. I've been fighting the best guys, so I would like a gimme fight. So Conor, I'm more than welcome that.
That said, the fact that Alvarez held the UFC lightweight belt played a significant role in McGregor's decision to face him at UFC 205. Whilst Alvarez would ultimately get his money fight, his call-out would end up costing him the lightweight title, as in the latter half of the second round, McGregor managed to TKO his opponent and become a 2-division champ in the process. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching guys, and we'll see you on the next video.